Today we're going to be talking about ecology and the levels of organization. And we're going to be keeping this theme of building a little bit more and a little bit more about how ecology works. First, let's look at what the levels of organization are. We will focus on 5 of the 6 levels of organization listed here. First, we have an organism. Then, if you have a collection of organisms, you get a population. You have a bunch of populations, you get a community. You get some communities put together in their environment, you get an ecosystem. You get a general area of ecosystems, you get a biome, and then the Earth itself is the biosphere. Now we're going to take this down and look at it in a little more detail. So first we're going to look at an organism. So here we have a tick that you can see, and there is one tick, that is the one organism that you are looking at here. An organism, as it is defined, is a single individual of a particular species. Here's my example, a tick. Okay, so why do you look at an organism and call it ecology? Well, let's look at what we look at when we look at organismal ecology. First, how does an individual interact with its environment? That's the first key to this. We see the morphology or the shapes or adaptations a specific organism has to work in its environment. A tick is a great example. So a tick has a mouth part that can suck, that can attach to skin and then start sucking blood out of the skin, and it gives a little numbing chemical in there so that you don't really feel it happening. So that would be part of its physiology. And the behavior it has is when you walk by, maybe in a thing of grass that has ticks on it, that motion, along with the heat of your body, is an indicator to the tick that it's time to drop off the grass and now fall onto you or a deer or whatever else it's planning on sucking blood from. So those are the aspects of the organism that describe its ecology. Another example is which bird gets the best nesting site. So you can compare birds and see, hey, ones with a particular type of look or maybe sharper talons, these get a better nesting site. And that's the organismal level of ecology. Now we're going to build on that and talk about the population level. Now with the population, we have a group of organisms of the same species that interbreed and live in the same place at the same time. Okay, so in other words, this is a group of species, and they're all, a group of organisms that are all the same species, and they are in one place at the same time. And as you can see from the graphs that are posted there, we first have exponential growth, and that's unrestricted growth. When we talk about populations, we're looking at how fast does the population grow? What patterns are there in the types of growth, or when it grows more, when it grows less? Population ecology tends to be very mathematical and really focuses on what's going on in that way. So what we usually look at is a logistic growth curve, and that's the part B in your graph there. And you have an S curve. So in a logistic growth curve, and that's a logarithmic curve, over time you have an S curve. And at the steepest part of that curve, that's called the point of maximum growth. And there's lots of implications of how you maintain different species and do restoration by that maximum growth point. With population ecology, the focus is on how a population changes with time. And it's used to identify endangered species. So if that population is not growing for some reason, then we start looking, oh, what's happening to that species? So in this case, what we have is community. And community is all the populations of a species that live in a given place at the same time. In the picture, we have a parasitic wasp laying its eggs on an egg of another organism. And by doing that, what will happen is the wasp will, when its eggs hatch, it will use the matter that's in the egg of the other species to feed itself so that it can grow up to be more parasitic wasps. So this is the way that two species are interacting and their populations interact. So we really look at interactions when we talk about the community level. That's the key. So you think community, you think interactions. And here we have some of those interactions. We have predator-prey, symbiosis, parasitism, and commensalism. And we'll be talking about that more in detail in tomorrow's work. Now we're going to talk about ecosystem. Ecosystems are all the organisms in a particular region along with non-living components. So what we're really looking at here is we're looking at how energy and chemicals and things like that move through the living parts and non-living parts of a particular region. So when I look at this, I say, okay, the sun comes down and we have photosynthesis on anything that's green there, and so that's our first movement of energy. And then that energy, when we have a primary producer, such as a plant, that photosynthesis becomes potential chemical energy, and then that potential chemical energy can be consumed by a primary consumer, and then that movement can go throughout the system that you're seeing here. So that kind of movement that you see of different types of consumers and producers and the way the energy is moving in that area is known as an ecosystem. So we broaden that out a bit when we talk about biome. And a biome is formed by a group of ecosystems. So you can see these get bigger and broader with each category. And biomes are characterized by having a certain type of vegetation, moisture, and temperature. And so let's look at some different types of biomes. Here are some different types of biomes on the Earth. We have rainforests. Those are found around the equator in most, or within close proximity to the equator in most cases. Then we have temperate deciduous forests, and those found on the east coast of many continents, such as the United States and Asia, and also Eastern Europe. You get that temperate deciduous forest. Then we have boreal forests or taiga forests. Those are up north. And the reason they're not down further south is the landmass further south does not exist. There's a southern ocean down there where a boreal forest would be if there happened to be land. But there is no land down there, so you don't see boreal forests in the southern hemisphere. Then you have chaparral, which is when you get added heat, still fairly dry. You have some trees with grasses interspersed. That's found in California largely, like with their oaks. Then you have grasslands, savanna, desert. And desert is due to the Hadley cells, and we'll get to that later, but those Hadley cells allow for those to largely exist at the 20 degrees north and south latitude, and then tundra. So here is a way of conceptualizing biomes. On the x-axis, you have the average temperature in degrees. So as you get warmer, if you don't have very much precipitation, because precipitation is on the y-axis, you have either tundra or desert. Very little water, you have tundra or desert. If it's colder, it's tundra. If it is warmer, it is desert. Then, as the precipitation increases, if it's colder, it's a boreal forest. As it gets warmer, you get temperate grassland or even warmer savanna. And then, with additional precipitation, you still have boreal forest in there, but as it gets warmer, deciduous forest, and then tropical seasonal forest. Then, as it gets even more precipitation, you get your temperate rainforest, which is actually very similar to the conditions we have, the biome we live in here in Western Oregon, or tropical rainforest in a warmer climate.